Hello friends! The smell of homemade chocolate pudding cooking is one of those smells that can instantly take me back to my childhood. That stuff in the plastic tub at the grocery store is not for me, but then I don't really like cooking puddings either because I find the recipes to be way too fussy. You have to sift all the dry ingredients to get out any lumps, or you have to make sure not to add your liquid too fast to avoid the mixture clumping, or you have to stir constantly so that you don't get any lumps. But when I discovered that you can make homemade pudding in the Vitamix blender, I was in heaven. It's as easy as even the simplest dump and stir recipes. Like all my Vitamix recipes, this chocolate pudding recipe is so simple, even a cook with no experience can put this together. This recipe only takes a handful of ingredients, and these are all things I always have on hand in my pantry and refrigerator. So making a batch of chocolate pudding for dessert just takes a few minutes. Ingredients you will need for this recipe are 1/2 cup granulated white sugar, 6 tablespoons of cornstarch, and 6 tablespoons of cocoa powder. You will also need 3 cups of half and half or whole milk, 2 tablespoons of butter, a pinch of salt, and 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. This recipe could not be easier. Once you have gathered all your ingredients together, the next thing you want to do is to put your half and half, or the whole milk if you're using it, into the Vitamix blender jar. And I'm using half and half instead of whole milk because it gives it a richer and silkier feel to the final pudding. If all you have is whole milk, then by all means use that. It will still make an excellent pudding. Next, you want to add the rest of your dry ingredients, including the pinch of salt, the granulated white sugar, the cocoa powder, and finally, the cornstarch. We haven't forgotten about the vanilla and the butter. They will be added after the pudding is finished. Put the lid on the blender jar firmly. Place the blender jar onto the motor and turn the Vitamix to its lowest setting. You'll want to watch the side of the blender jar to make sure that all your dry ingredients are being stirred into the liquid. No need to worry about lumps in the pudding at this point. The Vitamix will grind up any lumps that occur at this stage. You just want to make sure that none of the dry ingredients are sticking to the sides of the container. If anything is sticking to the side of the container, take a rubber spatula and scrape down the sides. Replace the lid on the jar, place it back on the motor, and making sure that the Vitamix is on its lowest setting, go ahead and turn it on. Once you're satisfied that everything has been combined thoroughly, slowly increase the speed of the blender to its highest setting, which is usually level 10. Let the Vitamix run on this highest speed for about 7 minutes. At the end of the 7 minutes, you should see steam coming out of the top vent. You will want to stop the blender and check that the pudding has thickened to a pancake-like consistency. Be very careful removing the lid because the pudding will be very hot and the steam can cause a nasty burn. If it is nice and thick, then add your vanilla and butter to the blender and mix until everything is thoroughly combined. If it hasn't thickened, then put the blender back on high and let it run for a few minutes, and if necessary, add another heaping tablespoon of cornstarch and blend thoroughly until you see the steam coming out of the top of the blender. Pour the hot pudding into your serving dish or storage container using a rubber spatula to help get the mixture out of the blender container. You can eat this pudding warm or cold. It will be fairly thin if you eat it warm. The cooler the pudding becomes, the thicker it will get. After about 4 hours in the refrigerator, it will have the consistency of soft serve ice cream. If you like your pudding very thick, you'll want to chill this overnight. If you decide to serve this chilled, make sure to cover the surface of the pudding with plastic wrap before you refrigerate it to avoid a skin from forming on top. If you're one of those that enjoys the skin on homemade pudding, then chill it without the plastic wrap. The choice is yours. Now that you've seen just how easy it is to make homemade chocolate pudding in a Vitamix blender, I hope you give this recipe a try. I tried this pudding after chilling for 4 hours, sprinkled with a few walnuts to give it a nice texture contrast, and it was delicious. The pudding is so rich, smooth, and creamy. It's really chocolatey and not too sweet. If you enjoyed this recipe, please click on the subscribe button and leave me a comment below. Also, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Please join me next time for Adventures in Food with Howard. Bye for now.